Shavua Tov, everyone. Hope everyone had a very uplifting and inspiring Shabbos. Okay. We have a few small pieces here today that hopefully we'll be able to cover some of them. Okay, so begin the piece that he discusses over here is called Yuhara. Yuhara is, well, we'll let him talk. So the Peleh Yoetz says like this: Kama dvorim osru chachamim. There are a number of things that the chachamim prohibit us on, mishum demerzi kiyura, because it gives a certain impression that you are living, you're conducting yourself above and beyond where you are holding. V'lo kol harotza litel es Hashem. Not everyone who wants to take upon themselves a certain conduct, lasos mili dichazuta yasa. Now, certain things the Torah expects from all Jews, and there are certain things that are not expected from all Jews. Jews who wish to put themselves, to go beyond what the halacha demands, that's what we call chasidus, and that's what he's discussing over here. And he's saying it's not necessarily acceptable for everyone to be able to do that. As we all, in certain areas, people want to be able to go above and beyond what the Torah demands. And that's something that's very exceptional. But a person has to weigh that out, as he's pointing out, is that it shouldn't give an impression of what we call yuhara, that the person is going above where he really is. Eliyesh Peles, there's a scale, Umozne Mishpat, and it needs to be weighed out judiciously. V'hakol lefi ha'inyan, and each situation needs to be judged accordingly. Shim yesh iser b'davar, if there's anything which is forbidden, or bitul mitzvah, or not fulfilling a mitzvah from the Torah, or midivrei sofrim, or even midrabanan, V'rov ha'olam ein nisharim, and even if most of the world is not careful about it, who wrote Elizar, and he wants to be careful about it, ve'eno yochel lasos b'tzina, he cannot do it privately, then yaseh b'farhesia, then do it. Now, again, certain things that are on some level it's a forbidden act, but people do not, for whatever reason, people are not careful about it. And this person wants to be careful about it, and he cannot do it in a way that would be, he could do it quietly without people being aware of it. Then he's pointing out that he should absolutely follow through on it. Mishum yuhara, that's not considered yuhara, that's not going above and beyond, because that's what the Torah wants. The Torah wants a person to be careful. As I said, types of conversations on Shabbos, it's not accepted according to the halacha. So if a person wants to be careful about it, as Daf Yomi came up not long ago, that the Gemara says that Bekoshi, with difficulty, they were permitted you to say, good Shabbos. That was but with difficulty, Tosfos quotes. So you had people, I remember my Rosh Yeshiva Rav Sternberg, he did not speak, he only spoke Torah on Shabbos. He only spoke Torah on Shabbos. So I'm saying that would not be considered. Now, he was a person who was certainly on that dargah to be able to conduct himself that way. And it certainly wouldn't look that way. But even for someone else who's pointing out, if that's what the halacha wants from us, then that's the way it should be done. That's the way it should be done. And it wouldn't be considered you're on anybody's level, because that's what the halacha wants, that the type of our conversation on Shabbos has to be a certain type of a conversation. And similar to ideas like that, he's pointing out. And don't worry about people laughing at you. Famous idea. It's preferred, a person is much better off to be embarrassed in this world, that he should chas v'shalom, never be embarrassed in the next world. So again, to reiterate over, if a person is trying to be careful about things that many people, for whatever reason, are not careful about, but it is a halacha, so then a person has every right and should, by all means, try to be careful in it, even if others would look at him askance and they'll say, you're trying to be, so, who are you to do that? It's not your place. That's not the case, and you follow through. But again, check it out, see if that's what the halacha wants. V'im haskamas haposkim lahatir, continues over here. But let's say it's something that is generally accepted. It's something that was the general consent is that's the accepted halacha. V'yesh osrim, but there are other opinions that say one shouldn't do it. V'chein kol mili de chasidusa, and other areas where you're going above, and again, because he's pointing out over here that this is the halacha. The halacha comes out a certain way. But there's a minority opinion not that way. Then lo yaseh b'farhesya, then a person should be careful about doing this in public. Elamisha kone shem tov, unless he's someone who already has a reputation for someone who tries to be careful on halachas. U'muchzuk b'chasidus, he's someone that we know is careful about things on that level. Sheodeya b'birur, he knows very clearly. Shekola on onim achrav mekudash, because again, people are definitely going to scrutinize that person. People are definitely going to scrutinize. Vein mishi adaber alav toeh, and the person who says it should not make that mistake. Aval balav hochi, but if someone is not holding at that point, haheder tov, he's saying that not doing it, you're better off. You should only do these things if you can do them quietly. And do it in your house and out in the street. It's a different story. In other words, I'll just throw out an idea. Again, using Rav Sternberg as an example, but him not being the only one. People that wear tefillin all day. So if someone wants to do that, again, it's certainly a mitzvah to do that, but it's certainly not obligated. We're, whatever the general conduct of the overwhelming majority of Jews is not to. But if a person would want to do such a thing, he wants to wear tefillin. So then he's pointing out over here, if you're someone who they look at you and they see that you're someone who's careful, so then you're going to walk around the street that way. So then that seems to be okay. But if not, so then he's saying, you want to do it in your house, but not necessarily in the street. Try not to be different than what's accepted by the majority of Jews. You want to take upon yourself a good minig. He talks, there's also there's a separate issue. If you want to do something, it's good, whatever it may be. Yasna mikor, it's always a good thing. You hear about, like I said, last January when they finished up Daf Yomi, you want to take, I'm going to do Daf Yomi. So he's telling it's a minig tov, you want to do that. You heard something about tzedakah, you want to give chomesh. Let's say you heard how enormous the mitzvah of chomesh is, giving 20% of your income. So you want to do something like that. So he's saying a person should always be careful. Yasna miikora. Always, before you start something to that extent, always make a tanai, a condition. Sheyeh bli neder, that you're doing this, not taking a neder, because once you start a minig tov, it can take on the understanding of a neder, which is a very serious thing. So two things he's trying to tell you. Number one, try to do it, make sure you do it bli neder. And number two, do it quietly. Well, befrat, for sure, he's saying, Mishima Oravim Abrios Bamasu Matan, someone who's involved with the community in business areas. Veinu Zohir V'Zoriz B'Kol Inyonav, he's someone who's not careful about other areas. Achilayimtsu Mokum L'Daber Alav Toa, that they should never leave yourself open for people to say inappropriate things. And a person should run. Don't stay far away from doing things that are chasidus, and that's going above and beyond the halacha in public. Ki takef, because right away he says kashashim, because when other people notice this, in other words, and again, the question is, who cares what people think? The answer is you're seeing over here and in other places that the halacha does relate to that. We do that. The halacha does care what other people say. Now you could say, well, let them down lekav schus. That's true. That's their line. That's not your line. In other words, you have to be concerned, like he's saying for you, hara over here, that the people, you shouldn't do something that might give people an excuse to make a certain criticism, etc. And we don't live with the idea, well, who cares what they have to say, and it's too bad. I'm going to do what I want. It's a free country. Well, that's not the way the halacha works over here, I'm sorry to say. Mahim omrim, right? And there's kitekev kishachem rorim, also, you'll see what they start saying. Chazu gavra botzei beirach. People will, for good or for worse, that's people have, a certain scrutinous eye. And that's the way it works. And as I said, the halacha does not ignore them. It's going to cause a chil Hashem in the end. So what will happen is you are inadvertently causing other people to talk inappropriately, and you're going to lose what one could have gained with the chasidus, with the loss of the chil Hashem that's happening. Hashem yera lelevav, and Hashem sees hearts. If you're doing it, in other words, if you're trying to do something good, Hashem sees what you're doing good. If you can't do it in public, Hashem will give you all that credit. In other words, again, I'll just give a, it's not necessarily a good example, but I'll just give something similar. I even saw in a few places over here. In other words, if someone would come into a yeshiva, a Rosh Yeshiva would go over and say, look at the Talmidim over here. They're enormous. They're masmidim, and they're unbelievable, and they're avodas Hashem. It's so beautiful. So he would say, well, would you do that in somebody else's yeshiva too? I was just saying that about your Talmidim, how enormous, how wonderful it is, a big kiddush Hashem. But would you say that about it had it been somebody else's Talmud? Would you say the same thing? In other words, the idea being over, if we're looking to do something for Hashem, so then I'm not looking for the headlines. I'm just looking to make a kiddush Hashem. And if the best way to make a kiddush Hashem, he's pointing out over here, is to do something privately, so then good. Again, if I'm looking for the headline, so then he's not talking about that type of a person over here. If you're looking for people to take notice of you, which, whatever, people like to get encouragement. People like to be noticed, whatever it may be. There's certainly a percentage of that sometimes in a person's motives. But he's saying if a person's truly looking l'shem shemayim and he wants to do something, because he feels that that's what he'd like to do. So then, if it's important to be done privately, and then good, Hashem will give you all the credit for everything. Don't worry, the kiddush Hashem you're making and the what it's doing in Shemayim for the Jewish people is enormous. And Hashem will give it to you all the credits. And even someone who they look at that person with chasidus, and as they understand he's somebody who's a careful person. Again, al yasa davar she'ein gedolei hadorni sarambo. Even there, he's saying, if you see gedolim don't do this, then shelo lahotzi lazav, then don't you do it? Because they'll say, well, what about the earlier gen? They weren't so careful about that. No, these are very, very delicate areas, and you got to know. Shemer atu lo re'inu chachamim chasidim. We saw chasidim. And they didn't do that. So, what was something wrong with them? Ein ze elayura, you're showing off. Why do you have to do something better than the others? Well, he's saying, Tov ish yikalkel dvar v'mishpat. A person needs to look at the big picture. V'seichel tov, thought out. V'yimitza chen v'seichel tov bein elokim. Try to do something that will make a kiddush Hashem. Well, befrad b'fnei gedolim, and certainly if you're going to do something in front of big people, if they're not careful about it, so then pull back from it. B'kabel schar ala hafrosh, and you'll get reward for all that. If you see that gedolim are not that careful about it, so then it's not something that you need to, do. Now, again, I'm not going to mention example, whatever, as you know, as it says in Pirkei Avos, as cheluch harav, get yourself a rav, and these types of questions will definitely be, you can put that out. Is it something that it feels that something could be done in private, should be done in public, etc. You got to know. You have to know. Okay, so that's that little piece over here. Are there any questions on that little piece, which is not so small? That's a very big. It's a big concept over here, and it needs a lot of thought. We just when we get inspired about things, it's beautiful things to do, but we have to weigh out exactly to see the big picture. You have to know how that fits in. Okay, next piece he has it's called Yashrus. These are all very, very choshev ideas over here. It's these are things that could take we can go into them in quite detail, but we're getting a general overview over here. Yashrus is someone who wants to be a straight person. So again, he points out, Roy la'adam shelo lahamid dvarav al din Torah. Listen to this. Person should not work exclusively by the book. You don't do things according to the way the Torah says it should be done. We'll see what that means in a minute. Elech leilech achar hayosher. You should do what's yosher, what's straight. What does that mean? Shaharei lo chorba Yerushalayim. Listen to what he brings down. The Gemara in Bava Metzia says is that Yerushalayim was. You know why Yerushalayim was destroyed? Al shehemidu divreim al din Torah, because they did everything by the book. The way the book works, that's the way it's going to be. So then what happens? So if we work by the book, so then as we've seen many times, Shaz Gama Kodesh Baruch Hu danosam al pi midosam. So then God says, well, then I have to work by the book. If you work by the book, so then I have to work by the book. And sometimes it's not so good. Lefi hadin hagamor, v'nimtzu chayavim, and therefore the Jews were found guilty. Ubevadai shanotel maman mechaveiro. Now he's saying for sure, if someone takes money from someone, according to the halacha, shelo al pi hayosher, but it's not the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to do. You're taking money, but it's not right. Osid li teines adin. In the future, you're going to have to be accountable. B'chai b'din shemayim. In other words, again, as we see over here, there are certain things that even if in this world we do not work with it, but in Shemayim there's an accounting. Ukagoni gives an example. Hanosin pikadon lechaveiro. Someone puts something by someone. You ask him to watch something for you. Benignav, and it got stolen by that person. Or nevar, it got lost from him. So again, somebody asked you to watch his car. Let's say you're going to watch the car got stolen. Sha'af im hadin mechayvim l'shalem. So even if the halacha would say that the person has to pay for it, eino mina yosher, it's not right though. Shushulam lo ra'ala chesed shos. In other words, he did you a favor, and he watched it for you. He did you a favor, and you're asking now to pay for it. Lo ala chamas b'kapa. He says, I can give you many examples like that. So, person, you need to know. You need to know. Aval Yetzer Somach, but there's always, unfortunately, the Yetzer Hara. Oche Shmuro Seinayim, and grabs it. Vein Odem Roa Chovalatzon, people never see their mistakes. Derech Ish Yosher Bein of them, people always see themselves as being correct. Baroy Lemisha wrote Lasso Tova Yosher, so therefore he wants to say, if you really want to do what's right, Sheyimloch b'Talmid Chacham, ask a Talmid Chacham, what does he think would be the right thing to do? It's not always what the Torah wants. You have to see exactly what's the right thing to do. If you don't have someone who you can ask, Yilach b'Kono, again, ask Hashem, what do you think Hashem you would want me to do? And look at it, just the opposite. Right, that's what happened with me once. I made an agreement with someone, and he didn't want to keep the agreement. So I said, well, Well, how would you want it if it was the other way around? How would you want me to, to treat you? And that's what he's saying over here. So he's saying, imagine the tables were turned. What would you want that person to do? Right? Let's say it was the other way around. Would you agree with that? Would you be so happy with that idea? We can tell a person by the way he deals in monetary world. Because again, if money's going to come in a not straight way, in the end, it's going to be taken away from you. It's not to your benefit. People who in business who are serious people, they can always help Rabbanim. And through them, you can come up with a proper judgment, according to the way they think would be the right way to do it. Again, you have din, you have lifni mishur din. And Hashem will also judge us that way. So that's as far as relations go, that a person should always try to do what's right. He says, so too, when a person learns, he should try to do things, he should learn correctly. What does that mean? Don't be crooked. If a person, very often a person comes up with a certain idea, and then he will do everything he can to justify and support his idea, even if the supports are very illogical and so far-fetched. But in order for a person to justify himself, people will do that. And he's saying, don't do that. Don't come up with an understanding and a way of looking at things and use crooked or far-fetched ideas to support that idea. Because then it's not the right way. All this will do is bring up further argumentation. And disagreements. And you're destroying things. Anything that's right, straight, and it's right. If you hear something, even if it's not the way you thought it, you should accept it. Then it says, Ashrei Misha Mala B'Torah. Then your learning is a proper one. Osa Nachas L'Yotzri, giving Nachas to Hashem. Hein Marbim. These are the people that are bringing Shalom into the world. Okay, so we have these two pieces. Is there any questions on any of these two pieces, gentlemen?
I had a question.
You had one. Okay.
I forgot the question. I was trying to hold back on something before.
You had a what?
I was holding back on saying I didn't want to disturb the issue.
Okay.
But you were talking about being straight. But that's what it was. There's certain dinim, right? That the halachas in the Torah, like you were saying, how the halacha is that if somebody borrows something from somebody, and not borrows something from somebody else, but somebody watches it, right? The Torah dictates that he has a right to, he's responsible for it.
100%, yes, 100%.
Why would the Torah create a situation where the right thing to do is to go beyond beyond what the halacha is, actually, just forget about it. It's fine.
The Torah gives us what the I understand. Again, there's always, there's the law, and then there's something which is beyond the law. In other words, the Torah is telling you what the basic law is. That's correct. The Torah gives us a guideline within which we can work. But there is room. Sometimes there's room for a person to see a little bit above it. In other words, not to demand what the Torah wants. In other words, take into consideration other ideas.
So you're saying the Torah doesn't want that? They're giving that as an...
No, I'm not saying the Torah doesn't want it. In other words, you have to weigh out the situation. You have to weigh out. In other words, you have every right to ask for it. You have a right to ask for it, but sometimes. In other words, let me just give you an example. Okay, the Gemara was discussing. The Gemara has a case about somebody who finds lost objects.
Mm-hmm.
So the Gemara says that person has the right to say, and the person said, and the person who it belongs to, he says, you found my wallet, let's say, right? So he says, well, there was $200 in that wallet. Where's the $200? So he says, I only saw 100. So the Chachamim say we give the right for the one who found it to swear that there, to say that there was 100 and that's it. Because if you're not going to do that, so then nobody's going to want to return lost objects. Or I'll give you another example. In other words, similarly by Shemitah, Torah says that all loans are canceled. Correct? That's what the Torah says. That if anybody borrows money and comes Shemitah, the debt is canceled. So the Gemara points out that Hillel saw that it's not going to work that way. So we came up with a rabbinic way to circumvent that, because otherwise things weren't going to operate that way. So the Torah certainly gives me a certain halacha. If we see that certain things need to be adjusted in order for the society, so again, you have to know when and how to do these things. It's not just, you can't just wake up one morning and just decide to do it. Again, we'll give another example. The Torah Shabbal Peh is not allowed to be written down, correct? It's forbidden to write. That's why it's called Torah Shabbal Peh. There's Torah Shabiksav and there's Torah Shabbal Peh. The Torah says that Torah Shabbal Peh is not allowed to be written down. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, but there was a pasuk says, Eis Laso Hashem Hefeu Torah Secha. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi felt that based on that pasuk over there, which is in Tehillim, that we're being given an option now to override the Torah, because to save the Torah. So again, you need to be someone who's on those levels to be able to see everything in its totality and to know when we work according to what the Torah wants, and when we see that it's important sometimes to not follow exactly the letter of law, but to do what's right, to do what's yosher. Right, that's the whole concept of what we call pshara. That's what the Torah wants. Sometimes there's room for, we need to do compromise. So you have to know. The Torah allows for all of that. The Torah allows for all of it, but we do need to know what the halach is, and then if we see, we need to know what the halach wants, and then we see if there's reasons to do differently in certain situations. So then I have to make that call. But I need to know what the halach is, because that's what the Torah is telling me. But the Torah definitely leaves room for situations where it's not best. So then we do things differently. But you got to know when and how. It's not just up to anybody to wake up one morning, and like I told you before, the conservatives say, well, now why don't you ride to shul on Shabbos? It's not for us just to decide, in other words, what's going to be, or other things. You can't just wake up one morning and to decide what's best and what's not best. You have to have, you need to know. It's not simple. Okay. Did I answer you in some way, Mayor?
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Okay, Beseder Gamor. Okay, so Be'ezrat Hashem, we will pick up tomorrow then, unless there are other questions. Okay, the Seder.
How's Rabbi feeling?
Baruch Hashem, getting much better. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, much better. Baruch Hashem. Okay, great. All right. Enjoy the day. And Mitzvah Hashem will pick up tomorrow.